and go philosophy at the end of this race. Gary?
Well, we're down here in the Penske pit. Jerry Breon, who's the tire man for Team Penske on Al Unser Jr.'s car, checking now the measurements as the tire that came off. No signs of wear whatsoever. We had checked with him just a few minutes ago, and he said that on the previous stop, they did have one very small blister. It did not impact the wear of the tire at all or the performance of the car. So Breon and the crew talk. They plat more tire strategy. Roger Penske, of course, is on the wall in that familiar pose just a few feet away. And this Penske team knows they've got a fight on their hands with Scott Pruitt in the Michigan 500, Paul.
Well, the average speed was coming up. It was up at 188 miles an hour. This caution's going to hurt it, but it's going to make for a terrific race here at the front between Scott Pruitt and Al Unser Jr. We'll be back. Has brought out this yellow. It's a result of a blown engine over in one. Now let's take a look from Adrian Fernandez onboard camera. Fernandez is up there in that pack, coming off of 4. Down across the tri-oval and across the start finish. Now keep an eye way ahead up there. Boom, there goes the engine. Now then all the water out of the engine sprays back not only on our camera but on Adrian's visor, and then he almost collects Salazar as Salazar spins up to the wall off of turn 2. Here it is again. Watch Fernandez. He's virtually blinded.
Whoa. Well, that was close, and there wasn't anything anybody could do about that. Certainly wasn't Salazar's fault. It was an engine that just literally exploded. Look at the white smoke coming out. The white smoke is oil, water, everything getting together. Now you can see the spray. Look at it way up there. Then the spray comes back and gets on the next car.
Salazar must have seen it coming because he got down low. The IndyCar safety team trying to get the course cleaned up there off of 2. In the meantime, let's go to Jack.
Well, this man knows what it's like to go to victory lane, but it's been a while for Pat Patrick. You got out of racing. You came back to try and help Firestone get involved. And, Pat, you only live just down the road here. But the question is, what are you going to do about your fuel strategy? Because it looks, I noticed you and Jim McGee were chatting about it and trying to decide, is it going to be a gas and go we may see at the end?
I can't really elaborate on that because Jim and I haven't agreed yet.
Oh, boy. Jim, why don't you get in here now? What part of it do you want to argue for, a gas and go?
We haven't agreed to disagree either.
This is what makes racing so very important, though, the strategy that unfolds on pit road. Forget the drivers during the caution. You guys are checking your telemetry. You're checking between yourselves and the years of experience. What do you think will be the determining factor, Pat?
Well, it depends on how the cars perform, and Al's running very well. Of course, so is our car. The Firestone tires are doing excellent. As you know, the 2 Honda cars are the fastest cars on the track. Roger is a tough guy, and this seemed like old times, he and I fighting it out. I just hope we're both here at the end.
Well, the great thing, guys, when he was talking to me, look at over here. Jim McGee had one ear cocked, and he kept trying to see what Pat might say to see if he could get an edge on that argument and that agreement to disagree.
A couple of real smart cats right there.
Next Saturday on ABC Sports, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway will roll out the red carpet for the stars of stock car racing. Defending champion and NASCAR points leader Jeff Gordon battles a field of the sport's finest at the Brickyard 400 live. And then on ABC's Wide World of Sports, Dale Earnhardt and the world's top drivers battle in identical cars in the International Race of Champions, and I'm telling you, don't miss that one. Plus, we begin coverage of the World Track and Field Championships from the Otberg, Sweden. That's all Saturday here on ABC Sports. After 181 laps, there is the full field rundown under the yellow, so everybody's tucked up nice and tight. Interesting names there moving up. Johansson, St. James, Jimmy Vasser, who had a 1 minute and 29-second pit stop, would put him behind. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, we heard from Pat Patrick. Here's the other friendly rival for so many years, and it's kind of like old times. We're saying Roger Penske battling Pat Patrick's team. Your thoughts, your concerns at this stage of the race now for your driver, Al Unser Jr.
Well, I think we've got a real good car. Pruitt's running well. It's great to be racing Pat here at the Michigan Speedway. I think the key thing is trying to finish. You know, we've run strong in this race before last year. We let it need to keep this pace under control because it's tough on the engines, run them over 13,000 every lap. So, you know, our concern is reliability all day. The engine's been running great, the Mercedes, and what we have to do now is just work smart. Al feels good with the car, and we'll see what happens. I'm sure it'll be a shootout at the end.
Last night you had a reception honoring your 500 champions over the years, and you have all those beautifully restored race cars. What would it mean to Team Penske to come back and win this 500-miler in view of the frustrations you've had thus far this year?
Well, in racing, there's nothing like momentum, and I can tell you that to win this race would be great. Al won the IROC race yesterday, so maybe it's a good weekend for us. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed, Gary, and Al's doing a heck of a job.
Thanks, Roger.
You know, since we mentioned it, the Penske restoration area just outside of this track is the home to 20 of 24 Penske chassis that have been built since 1974. And there they are. All the machines restored to their original driving condition. Each car in working condition is run once a year. The current project is restoring and rebuilding the original PC-1 driven by Mark Donohue. Photographs are reused to build the car, and it's a very long process.
As far as man hours on rebuilding something like this will probably take us about 12 to 18 months for two people to build this particular car. We do manufacture a lot of our pieces in-house here.
As we mentioned then last night, 6 of Penske's Indy 500 winners gathered at the Penske Restoration Shop. What an amazing collection of talent. So we're still under yellow here. Scott Pruitt is the leader. 184 laps are complete. It should be a great run to the finish in the Michigan 500. Back at the Michigan 500, presented by Speed Stick, 185 laps at 250 complete. Here's the way the engines break down. Scott Pruitt in that Ford has been very powerful throughout the day. Interesting commentary last night. Some of the people from Mercedes-Benz complained that we suggested and have suggested that the Mercedes does not get the distance that Ford does. Well, we're about to find out because it's a head-to-head battle now with Scott Pruitt and Al Unser Jr. stopping on exactly the same time 5 laps ago. Lynn St. James now runs 9th in that 90th car, or number 90 car. Past couple of weeks, she's been helping us out here in your absence, Bobby, and I got to tell you.
She's done a very good job today, Paul.
Well, she did a very good job sitting in your chair, too, pal.
I don't know about in the booth, but on the racetrack, I think she looks plenty good. But in my seat, maybe not so good.
I would do everything I could to get her a ride next year, my friend. Let's go down to the pits and Gary Gerould.
Well, Danny Sullivan is one of those that's lurking there, and I think 7th position, Paul, and they're doing it despite radio frustrations. The crew can hear Danny. Danny, however, can't hear any instructions from this side of pit wall, so they soldier on in the number 7 spot, back west.
There's Stefan Johansson. He runs now in 8th place, so he's been able to keep that 94 Penske car alive, and just ahead of him is Christian Fittipaldi, ahead of him on the race course, but Christian's 10 laps behind. Emerson Fittipaldi is sitting in 6th place, just ahead of Danny Sullivan.
I just looked out and counted 17 cars left running right now, and we're really going to have a trophy dash to the end, it looks like. One more fuel stop. It's going to be a fierce one.
The yellow flag is still out. This is one of the few tracks, or not one of the few. Last week was the only track that we don't have the EDS computer scoring system. We have it here. It's not only used by us, but Scott Pruitt's engineer using the EDS display for the first time in the pits. Many of the teams use it, and it's really helpful. Gary Gerould?
Well, Eliseo Salazar had a 4th place finish in the other 500-mile race during the month of May at Indianapolis. Today, I know you had high hopes, but tell us what happened now that put you out in that incident.
Yeah, well, I have mixed feelings with the race because I'm disappointed that we didn't finish. The engine went in turn 1, and, all the oil went in the tires, and I was lucky to hit the wall, but very lightly. So mixed feeling because of the disappointment, but also, I think we did a good race. We were going to dice for the lead. I was dicing with Pruitt, and I think we proved, that on super speed we were very good. So I'm very happy.
Contrast the different driving styles first at Indianapolis as opposed to the high banks and the speed you experience here with less boost.
Well, I think, you go flat all the time. That's what really kills the engine. There was the previous stint I went flat, for 30 laps, and the engines are running very, very strong.
Well, we're about to go green. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eliseo Salazar back here, and he's healthy and fine.
All right, they begin to pick up the pace on the backstretch now. 185 laps complete. Scott Pruitt, the leader. Al Unser Jr. will be chasing him. It should be a great fight. Interesting battle of contrasts here. Engines, Ford and Pruitt, Mercedes-Benz in Al Unser Jr.'s Firestone tires on Scott Pruitt. Al Unser Jr. shot with Goodyear. And, of course, 2 different chassis types sitting there. So we'll watch this battle as the green comes out and it begins to unfold.
Pruitt
Look at Little Al.
Pruitt can be very intimidating on a racetrack. You see Little Al on the left, Pruitt on the right. He's shouldered his way past several cars during this season. He's definitely one of the most aggressive drivers.
So Al Unser Jr. just slides past Scott Pruitt on that restart. And Pruitt now has to give chase, but he does have traffic ahead. And one car sitting up very high.
Now keep in mind, too, if either one of these guys or these 2 drivers, Pruitt or Little Al, run their engines too hard, too much RPM, too long, they're liable to break them.
Here comes Pruitt back on the challenge with Al Unser Jr. And Pruitt comes down inside him, and Pruitt comes back into the lead.
Boy, he timed that beautifully.
Now you can tell. Let's watch and see what Little Al does, and that'll be by the instructions from Roger Penske on what he wants him to do. Meaning, does he want to turn the RPM, or does he want to have a little bit more gamble or assurance that he's going to finish, turn less RPM?
Now Pruitt overhauls Teo Fabi.
Pruitt, of
Slows
course,
him down just a little bit. That gives Al Unser Jr. a bit of a chance.
Pruitt driving for Pat Patrick, who has not had a winner since 1989 when Emerson Fittipaldi won the championship for him. That's how much this counts.
It's almost a shame that you can't see how much banking from the camera's ball there really is. It's a really steep place that we just went through there.
Parker had a great example of that, riding his mountain bike up it, finding how steep it was. Just try walking up that in loafers or something. There's DeFerrin, and of course Pruitt and DeFerrin came together in the last laps of the race just last week. So to see them this close, they almost came to blows physically after that incident. So there's a lot gone down between these 2 men just in this last week.
Bobby Little Al doesn't seem to be able to mount a challenge right now.
It's because Penske is telling him there's still plenty of time to the end of the race. He's using the draft, and I'll guarantee he's running in what I call the overdrive gear. Roger Penske will not be flustered, and he's going to give Little Al the orders that are necessary. He's going to try to push Scott into running more RPM and breaking his engine. That's the whole contest right now.
It's been 6 races since Little Al had a podium finish, if you don't count Portland where he won and was disqualified. But he...
Whoa! And Lynn St. James and Danny Sullivan are together.
They're really hung together. Those cars are actually stuck together right there. They can't get apart.
Let's check both drivers. Danny Sullivan not moving in that cockpit. Can't tell about Lynn. So the yellow is out again. That was a pretty hard hit on the right side for both cars.
Quite a bit of damage. If you look at the rear wing, it's gone off of Danny's car onto the right there. Lynn is to the left. Lynn is moving.
And Danny's head's still down. And another car involved, Herta.
Minus the left front wheel.
So what brought all of this on? And is Danny okay?
Look at all the parts scattered all over.
Brian Herta,
who was
limps
running
back
in
into the pits.
4th place. That really takes Herta out of a hot finish.
Apparently some concern about Danny. Lynn St. James moving around there. They walked away from her car, so apparently she's okay. They want to try and get the field slowed down onto the lower line there.
Gonna wait and see how it goes. As far as if we